once again, my regular viewers and all you first-timers to the So Not PC podcast vlog with Rob Adonis on my YouTube channel and my website, www.sonotpcpodcast.com. We're outside. First episode. North of the 49th parallel, folks. It's cold. Anyway, hopefully we're going to heat you up with a little bit of current news. Usually I've spent the previous episodes on the podcast and the vlogs talking about a specific subject, bringing kind of some peripheral stuff into the mix a little bit, but always a central subject. But I thought today, you know what? We've taken a little bit of time away from the previous episode, and I thought that maybe we should kind of do a little bit more of a news reporter of the current events of the day and what's happened in the past week here. So I'll give you a bit of a rundown of not only the Canadian news, but some international stuff as well, because as we know, what happens around the world happens to us. So there's always a spillover effect with that. So anyway, again, welcome everybody. I'm always humble and grateful to have you here. So let's get to it. So, all right, let's take a look at what we got for everybody here this morning. Oh, looks like some juicy stuff here. Pulled off from a lot of places here. So, I wanted to make a mention of some of the stuff that's happening. Some of the people who are really actually fighting against the globalist agenda here. People like President Trump in the States, Viktor Orban in Hungary, Sebastian Kurz in Austria, Andrzej Duda, Poland, and Vladimir Putin. Yeah, some of you might think that's not the case, but for those in the know and who pay attention to what's going on, Mr. Putin, he's a pretty smart guy. Interestingly, he's a Christian, was put into power by the globalists, and Putin did a double back on him. So he knows exactly who the players are. He knows how to deal with them. And so much so, he's done what one of our number one targets of the show, George Soros, the handler of Mr. Pedo Puppet, Justin Trudeau, the number one target of my show. Orban, of course, put Soros on as an enemy of the state in Hungary. Can't go back there. So he'll be arrested, shot on sight. Putin's got the same thing. We should be doing that here in Canada as well. But of course, we know what Justin Trudeau is all about. He gets all of his orders from George Soros. So for those of you in the know, you already know this stuff, so this is a little redundant, but it's always good to come back to stuff about who these people are and what they're up to. All right, so anyway, let's take a look at what we got going on here. All right, let's begin in Canada with the usual number one target of douche news, Justin Trudeau, and affectionately known, in my view, as the Trudouche, not Trudeau. You know, I know some people out there love that name. By all means, use it. I think it's worthwhile. And, you know, George Soros, he plays around with this guy. He's going to do everything he can to rig the 2019 election as he did with the 2015. Those Smartmatic machines, the voting machines that change the votes, all that stuff. Pay attention to all of that. The other guy involved with this is Macron, which is, you know, Justin Trudeau's Feel My Baggage bromance. You know, you got to always wonder, have they fondled each other lately? And so anyway, some of the things I always talk about is how important it is to share the show, all of this news to other people, because we know how unawakened so many people are with this stuff. And it's interesting because there's some references here, and I was, just before I came on, I was looking at an article in regards to Google and an internal report that just came out today in regards to Sundar Pichai, the CEO, and he appeared in front of Congress a few months ago and lied his you-know-what off. And it showed exactly what everybody's been thinking and knowing, is that Google has been censoring conservatives, Christians, people with centered to right views, okay? That is now official in the internal documentation, okay? There's some sites out there that can go to it. I happen to pick that up off of naturalnews.com, so you can look into that one. And Mike Adams, who hosts that site, and he's been censored greatly. So we'll talk a little bit about the censorship. And I think one of the things that I'm hearing and I'm going to express more often now, not only on social media, but in the shows, is that people need to start moving away from Facebook. Obviously, that's Facebook. And, Mark Zuckerberg and his cronies. Instagram, Twitter, all of the usual suspects in this censorship program. Because we know conservative Christians, the sane people of this planet, we are saying what we need to say, and we're being banned or censored completely. So there are other options. Gab is one, Social Underground, Front Page Link, and I'm sure that there's a number of other ones that you guys are taking a look at, and you should transfer all of your profiles and all of your friends to. All right, let's take a look at what Trudeau and his co-conspirators, the Libtard Party, did this week to further devolve Canada and further uptick the hatred towards, them and us here. So, man, there's a lot of choices. Anyway, the one that was out there a lot was Trudeau threatens to sue Andrew Scheer over lies and claims regarding SNC-Lavalin, which obviously have been proven factual against the Libtard Party and SNC-Lavalin. With the quote, "Politicians need to be honest with Canadians." Holy shite, pedo puppet. What is that? In 3.5 years of the Libtard Party, has he ever had one word of truth come out of his mouth? Other than the fact that, evangelical Christians are the worst part of society. Now that was the truth on his part because he hates Christians. Okay, so everything else, the 99.9% of the other stuff, all lies. Okay, factual. All right, the other big thing that came up was Catherine McKenna, the environment minister who knows nothing about the environment, certainly knows nothing about climate, signed off on $12 million to Loblaws, owned by the Westons, one of the wealthiest families in all of Canada. Loblaws made $800 million in net profit last year alone. Explain to me and the rest of Canada why any government would be giving $12 million to a public company, $800 million profit, to buy fridges. Let's see. Let's chew down a little bit on the tidbits of Loblaws. They offshored $400 million that they owe in back taxes to the CRA. I think $12 million out of that $400 million that they owe, now I think they can pay for their own. When little store owners, for example, like Amanda Stevenson out of Manitoba, her cooler went down. She can't afford a brand new cooler, especially not the one the size that she had previously. She doesn't get any help. Small business runs this country. Not SNC-Lavalin, not Loblaws, no Liberal Party funder organizations worth billions of dollars. Anyway, on to the next little bit of news. He kicks Jody Wilson-Reybold and Jane Philpott out of the Liberal caucus, as was expected, and a third Liberal MP, Selena Cesar Chavanez, quits after the self-imposed fraud feminist Trudeau absolutely went off on her, became hostile towards her when she told him she was not going to run for re-election, I believe in Whitby, Ontario, I believe is her riding. So, for those of you who think he's a feminist, first of all, he doesn't know what the definition is, and he couldn't ever live up to that definition. So, for all of those fake feminists, leftists out there, let's take a look at what the word feminist or feminism actually means in the dictionary. All right, so, number one, the theory of the political, economic, and social equity of the sexes. Number two, organized activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. Anything that's been going on with Jody and Jane and Selena have anything to do with what was just described in the actual definition of feminism? Not even close. All right. Let's move on. And before we do jump ahead here to international news, I want to remind everybody that this is something that was started really back, 20 years ago when Mr. Groper, groped that young Creston reporter, and then wouldn't even take real responsibility for it. In fact, said that she, like Jody, misinterpreted. Wow, he seems to love that word. Sets so-called standards for others to live up to, but when he doesn't live up to them, he just shuffles off to Buffalo with it. Again with Mr. Feminist, lest we forget, in May of 2016, he literally ran onto the House of Commons floor and elbowed NDP MP Ruth Ellen Brosseau and didn't apologize for it. Yeah, nice guy. You keep voting for them, all you leftists. He's gone as of October, and I will guarantee it if it's the last thing I do and the last breath I take. So, moving on internationally, interestingly, the former Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, which for whatever reason, some people thought he was rather boring. But you know what? He was educated and he cared about Canada. And I think at this point, you all who voted for that piece of shite, Trudeaush, should look at what you did to this country, because it's your doing that he's there. Well, let's look at what Mr. Harper did. He was in France at a large conference recently, and he was asked by a French cabinet minister if Canadian involvement in Afghanistan was just an example of, quote, empire building. Well, Mr. Harper answered by saying, over the years, Canada has sent many of its fine young men and women into great peril to fight for freedom beyond our borders. The only amount of land we have ever asked for in return is enough to bury those that did not return. You could have heard a pin drop at that. That's an educated, caring individual, unlike Trudeau. Now, very big news that's been in the works for what, 5 to 7 years now? Julian Assange, for many of you who know him from WikiLeaks, and there was a movie made about him, was arrested in Ecuador at the British Embassy, where he was literally in solitary confinement on a conspiracy to hack computers charge. Okay, that's a good joke. And to be extradited to the US. Well, I'm going to say this, if that actually happens, I think that's a good thing for Julian, because there's a great opportunity for him. And here's how I'm going to put this after I state that France apparently is considering offering asylum to Julian. But if I were Julian, I would say no, given Trudeau's bromance. Macron is a globalist pedo puppet as well. So, I think once things begin to evolve with more information coming out, especially the fact that Julian has the 30,000 plus missing emails from Hillary Clinton and Obama Nation and all that Clinton cabal, if Julian is even indicted, I believe President Trump will make it appear, at least initially, he will stay arm's length with the entire thing, just like he did with the whole fake Mueller investigation and was found not guilty, which we all knew. And I think Julian will eventually have his day as well with all of this, and the information that he has, much beyond the 30,000 emails, shows all of these individuals who've been part of this conspiracy to commit treason in the United States, murders that have been made to look like suicides, and on and on and on. Pay attention to that story as it evolves, and I will give updates on that as we go. Now, part of the whole thing with Obama, I called him Abomination because he was the worst president in U.S. history. His chief counsel, Greg Craig, And of course, mainstream media, fake news, gave this story no coverage whatsoever. Was indicted for making false statements and concealing information regarding his law firm's work in Ukraine. What's big about that? They were working for Hillary and Bill Clinton for Uranium One. And the hundreds of millions of dollars and the uranium that they illegally sold to Ukraine. There you go. My guess is once the information starts to come forth and Greg Craig starts to sing like John McCain in Vietnam, and McCain's name was Songbird, you can bet Obama is going to sing, and in order to save his worthless ass. And guess whose name will come up a lot in that information? Hillary Clinton. Don't be surprised if Obama becomes one of Clinton's so-called suicides. So, some more interesting information. President Trump, a great chess move, said he's ready to dump all those illegal immigrants into sanctuary cities, thus cutting all funding and grants to those cities. And guess what? Those are all demon rat-led cities. For years they've been saying, let the illegals in, because that's where the Demon Rat Party gets their votes from. Now they're freaking out. Awesome. They don't want them there. Beautiful move, Mr. President. All right. Some very disconcerting news. We know Google's been censoring, and they own YouTube, right? Well, Google just launched what they call Wing, using drones in Australia to, at least initially, deliver coffee and fresh food in Australia. This is a very bad thing because of where this is going to lead to. If you think coffee and fresh food is going to be what they eventually deliver, not happening. It's going to be part of a depopulation plan. So, for those of us who hear of depopulation an awful lot, I want to make a mention of something. I came across a story, Microsoft working with a Chinese military university on artificial intelligence. Now, this obviously is elevating concerns that U.S. firms are contributing to China's high-tech surveillance and censorship apparatus. Well, that's getting to be known more and more every day. Now, we know Google and Apple are already over in China and have been for years. They just claimed they were only over there recently. So, that's called treason. And China, it is the world's worst enemy, by far. Not Russia. Not Russia. Oh, and speaking of Microsoft, for someone who's kind of been there, done that with them, for those who aren't yet aware of the real reason the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation exists, there's two reasons for that. One, they're a globalist front for world depopulation. That was verified to me by a former employee. Second, it's a globalist front for tax evasion. Bill Gates put his $31 billion worth of Microsoft shares that he had to sell officially when he stepped down as chairman of Microsoft years ago. He put that into his foundation. And adjacent to that was Warren Buffett putting $30 billion of his money to avoid taxes into that foundation as well. So, next, William Barr, who's the recently appointed U.S. Attorney General, stated in Congress that spying did occur against President Trump during his 2016 campaign. This is something we've been saying since that time. So for those of you out there who think Trump is a bad guy, first of all, you don't know him. Second of all, you're certainly not paying attention to his agenda and what he's been doing for the country, which I think for most of us who are in the know, wish that we had an individual who cared about the citizens of the country here. So, next up, Ilhan Omar, terrorist loving, married her brother to get into the U.S. illegally. and now a congresswoman from Minnesota, continues her verbal hatred towards Jews and claims someone did something on 9/11. But not Islamists, right? Well, Ilhan, something tells me you have become a pretty big target, and your time is short as a congresswoman. Oh, and to kind of add a little more validity to the fact that she can't keep her mouth shut, photos surfaced this week of her so-called secret meeting in New York City back in 2017 with Turkish President Erdogan, another globalist puppet, when she wasn't a congresswoman. And it happened to be in the same room Erdogan met with the leadership of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood, which Ilhan Omar is known to be affiliated with. Like, guess who? Hassan Ahmed, Canada's immigration minister. Yeah, who's from Somalia. One of 46 Canadian libtard party ministers not from Canada. How the hell does that happen? Anyway, well, maybe some good news here from my UK friends. Nigel Farage has launched his Brexit Party to campaign Brit support in breaking away from the corrupt globalist EU. That's a good one. Yellow Vests continue protests in France, and Macron is running scared as his approval rating is at an all-time low, single digits, in other words. Oh yeah, Theresa May, yeah, UK, another globalist puppet, will lose handily in the next election. And interestingly, she was meeting with Obama in secret, but that secret came out too. Benjamin Netanyahu wins in Israel against really formidable odds because the globalists can't stand him and wanted him out, but he won. That's a good thing. Another good thing that happened, an Islamic terrorist, ISIS supporter by the name of Ronald Henry, who planned a Maryland National Harbor waterfront truck attack, wanted to kill as many people as possible, but he was arrested. Thank God for that. Now, we talked about censorship earlier. Well, about a month ago, Facebook experienced about a full day shutdown. Well, this morning, Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp were again experiencing outages that started around 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, triggering a flurry of complaints on sites like Twitter. You can bet this will continue on. And speaking of Twitter, if President Trump wasn't on there, Twitter would not exist. Jack Dorsey is a leftist piece of you-know-what. So, to Jack Dorsey, once President Trump decides not to tweet anymore, your company is done, douchey. I don't tweet. That's a weird word anyway, tweet. Leave it for the birds. All right. Interesting thing, again this morning with Facebook. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg, that's right. Interestingly, accidentally included secret Orwellian messages on their Oculus VR virtual reality controllers. The messages state, "Big Brother is watching and the Masons were here," according to Business Insider. Yeah. We know who Zuckerberg represents, and we know Facebook censors and bans conservatives and Christian viewpoints all the time. Yeah. Again, leave Facebook. Leave all these places, okay? Anyway, I could go on through a lot of stuff. And I always keep coming back to the same thing, the mantra of the show all the time, folks. And that is, for those of you who follow it on a regular basis, it's do your own research, okay? I'm a busy guy. I work for a living. And as much as I'd love to put out a show every single day, I can't do that. Don't have the time, don't have the money. The show is, kind of a me, myself, and I sort of situation. I'd like it to be bigger, Maybe I should ask for donations, I don't know. But I haven't done that yet. So, One final bit of news for the audience to look into, and the likelihood is some of you already probably heard or read about this, but an article in the Financial Post on April 12th by Vivian Krause, who I'm sure probably some of you know, talks about the Rockefeller Foundation, working with Rachel Notley in Alberta, and Alberta's landlocked oil to kill the energy industry. Now, the article is there in the Financial Post. If you want to go to the website, I would suggest doing that. That's really www.business.financialpost.com and go into it. Again, that's April 12th. You should be able to find that. And it will give you a rundown of exactly what the Rockefeller Foundation is doing in conjunction with the NDP in order to completely annihilate the energy industry out there. So for those of you, when that election comes up here in Alberta, get rid of Notley. Just another globalist puppet. So, there we are, folks. Bit of a rundown of some front page news in Canada and around the world. Get you ready for the news week ahead. Let's pray. You know, that Canadians who are not awake, through our efforts, because it's our efforts, finally get it that Trudeau and the Liberals are the most treasonous people and party in the history of Canada. For those of you who want to refute that, go ahead. You have no evidence to back that up. We have it all. It's on our side. And the biggest thing is, when it's time for everyone to get out and vote, you got to get out and vote everywhere. Not 50%, not 60%. I'd say minimum 80% of the eligible voters in Canada need to get out and vote the right way. Get rid of the Liberal Party so they have no longer any status here in this country. That's the deal. Okay? And I figured that there's a formula on how to do this because it seemed to work down in 2016 in the US. Number one, that was pray. For those of you who don't, okay, but I suggested. 2, take progressive actions daily. Hugely important. 3, vote against the Liberals in every riding when it's time to vote. And 4, go back to number 1, pray some more. It works. So until the next show, everyone, again, do your own research. Very, very important. Keep the faith. Pray. Get together with like-minded, like-doing and anti-liberal folks and take action against the tyrannical Liberal Party. Chat with the uninformed. I'm forever humble and grateful to have you tune in to the show. I'm just one voice. But tune in to the Sonat PC Podcast with Rob Adamus on YouTube and sonatpcpodcast.com. And like always, may God bless you and your family in all ways. And good night.